Governments are no longer denying it. The military are no longer denying it. And even mainstream media no longer denies it. They're here and have been here for a very long time. The Mutual UFO Network has been on the front lines uncovering the truth since 1969. And now we're sharing the truth with you. Welcome to MUFON's What's Up with hosts Katie Grabowski, Christopher DePerno, and Katie Cook, exclusively on the KGRA Digital Broadcasting Network. Wondering what's up? So are we.
What's up? We made it to another Thursday night, and you're listening to MUFON What's Up Radio, the show that says discovery starts with curiosity and curiosity starts with MUFON. I'm your host, Katie Grabowski, Colorado State Director and MUFON Star Team Investigator. Welcome, everybody. This show is filled with 2 hours of great discussion and UFO news, and it's brought to you by KGRADB.com. And as always, we endorse MUFON, the Mutual UFO Network. It's always been on the front line asking that all-important question, are we alone in the universe? We have got a great guest for you tonight. We have one of the founding fathers of MUFON, John Schuessler. But before we get to that, I would like to introduce my wonderful co-host, Katie Cook. You have seen her on country music television for a couple decades, and you investigate all sorts of things, paranormal, UFO, and everything. So welcome, Katie.
Thank you. Happy to be here for another week. It's going to be good.
Yeah, it's going to be awesome. And Chris DePerno, Assistant State Director of New York. Welcome, Chris.
Hi, everybody. Oh, man, we got a great show for tonight with John Schuessler, the co-founder of MUFON. I am so excited about this interview. It's great. Welcome, everybody.
Welcome. So, Katie, what do you have to kick us off tonight?
Yeah, let's kick this off with a smile. Let's put up our meme of the week. Let us not forget this once passed as an alien. What is happening? Aliens used to be so cute. For anyone just listening, it's Star Trek. It's Captain Sulu, and he's holding, I think, let's face it, it's probably a Cocker Spaniel in a fuzzy costume with a little horn on his head. It's pretty silly, but I thought that was cute. And let's show you our paranormal pop of the week. It is a pink saucer. How cute is this? I love this one so much. So cute. So guys, there's still time to get these in time for Christmas, and they have so many wonderful pops. So definitely check them out at paranormalpops.com. I love them so much, and this one smells so good. And from pink chocolate saucers to Saucer Clothing Company, my favorite, I got a brand new bomber jacket this week that I'm so excited about. Amanda, can you roll that video? The Saucer bomber jacket is back by popular demand. On the back is that classic Saucer logo and says, "Elevate your craft." It's lightweight and sleek with zipper front closure and side pockets. Get them while supplies last. I love that jacket so much. And seriously, get them while supplies last, because they do sell out. I love Saucer Co., so definitely check them out. All right, Chris, I think it's time for UFO news and person of interest.
It is. I just want to say one thing on the paranormal pops. I actually took a bite of one. It was fantastic. I can't eat a lot of it because of my diabetes, but let me tell you something. Talk about a craving and talk about a great chocolate. Oh my God, people, buy this stuff. You will never regret it. All right, let's get on with the news. The Pentagon new office has a specific job. Oh, go figure that one. Defense leaders want to make sure they can spot and track phenomenon. They call it phenomenon now instead of UAP, trespassing over training ranges. This has been happening for 70 years, but who knows? A new office will seek and track and assess unidentified aerial phenomenon, the possibility alien things, formerly known as UFOs, that entered military training airspace, the Pentagon announced late Tuesday. The Airborne Object Identification and Management Synchronization Group, why do they just call it the UFO office, will be tucked into an office and the Defense Undersecretary for Intelligence and Security, and tasked with coordinating with other federal agencies to detect, identify, and attribute unidentified objects of interest, to assess and, as appropriate, mitigate any associated threats to the safety of flight and national security. Folks, remember that word threat. They're going to be using that a lot. Deputy Secretary of Defense Kathleen Hicks directed in a Tuesday memo. Earlier this year, the Director of National Intelligence released a report on more than 140 known sightings of unidentified aerial phenomena, or UAPs, that Navy pilots and others have reported for years. I wonder why the Air Force isn't reporting these things. Anyways, could be because they've been lying to us for 70 years. The report neither proved nor disproved that extraterrestrial technology was behind the video, and firsthand accounts of flying objects maneuvering in ways beyond known U.S. and competitor capabilities. The establishment of the office is important for years. Reports by Navy pilots were dismissed, and those aviators were reluctant to discuss the encounters, bringing the office into mainstream, where it will coordinate with ODNI and have high-level joint staff input. That's all we need as administrators into this now. Signals that emit new technology being rapidly fielded by China and Russia. Folks, this isn't China and Russia. Whatever it is that pilots are seeing out there, the Pentagon wants to know about it. Katie, you got any comment on this? Because really, this is a ploy to keep private industry out of the UFO field. The military is doing this, jumped on this because Senator Gillibrand wants private organizations like MUFON to jump into the mix. Any comment?
Well, first of all, the acronyms always, what's with acronyms in the UFO field? Everything's an acronym. Drives me crazy. But I think you asked a really good question. Like, the Navy's come out and they're kind of forward on this topic. What's with the Air Force? I don't know. And that kind of goes back to all my research.
Well, that's because they've been lying for 70 years. Yeah. How are they going to say, what are they going to do? Is come out and say, well, we've been lying for 70 years.
Right. Yeah, and I'm particularly interested in that because of all the stuff out in Elbert County, which is right by Air Force Academy and NORAD and all that. So these guys have been involved deeply in this phenomenon for a long time. So I think they're trying to get ahead of something. And, but you're right. We don't need more bureaucrats in there muddling the waters. Just come out with it. Come on already,
Cookie, what's your feeling?
Yeah, I feel the same way, just what Katie just said. And I'm sorry, but we do need private industry involved.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I would trust that more to be transparent. So,
all right. True. So on to our next story. An interview with Sergeant First Class Lynn Buchanan is again gaining traction. Sergeant Buchanan, one of today's most well-known remote viewers and participant in Stargate Project, who worked with the DIA's Secret Army unit, explained that the human race will undergo massive changes from between 2020 and 2050, including depopulation of the great majority of the human race. That's a little scary. Mr. Buchanan stated that remote viewing projects he has conducted determined by December 21st of 2012 was a kind of tipping point for humanity, after which we had crossed the point of no return, and there would no longer be any way for the human race to halt the impact of our technological development on the Earth's environment. Climate change. He elaborates that this will eventually result in widespread poisoning of Earth's atmosphere, food, and the 80% of the human population will perish. This is not good, resulting in our replacement by human-alien hybrids. Okay. He mentions different species of extraterrestrials, including many of the usual suspects like Nordics, reptilians, greys, and insectoids, and alludes to a paper he had previously written, which he elaborates upon in an interview with Dr. Jeffrey Mishlove, in which he was tasked with distinguishing ETs by the relationship between their psychic abilities and their intention for humanity. Folks, some of these people are just not good. In his paper, he states that there are roughly 4 categories of interest. Friendly psychic ETs who want to help human development with our psychic abilities, unfriendly psychic ETs who see human psychic ability as a threat and want us exterminated, friendly non-psychic ETs who see humans as a useful for trade, and non-friendly non-psychic ETs who see us as a threat and avoid us. The upshot, he says, will result in a human-alien hybrid race by 2050, Unfortunately, he states that the human species will become obsolete and the Earth is better off without us. So he says. He goes on to state that we already have extraterrestrial genes within us from having been experimented since the ancient times. I kind of agree with that part. Cookie, what do you think? Are we all done?
Well, gosh, yeah, the idea of a massive die-off, that's pretty terrifying, but maybe he's suggesting it's not a die-off as much as a evolving, and maybe we're already a little bit there more than we realize, but 2050 is right around the corner. I mean, this would suggest a massive contact event, would it not? Like almost immediately. I don't know what to think of this.
It's
scary.
Very interesting news. I take it with a grain of salt because I don't think we're ready to die off yet. But I do believe that we have an alien hybrid program going that maybe we're not involved with, that the aliens are. But who knows what their agenda is? Katie?
It kind of speaks to something that I've thought about in the past is that maybe there's some races of ET that really do care about humanity and us as a species, but I think there's others that really don't care about us and really just care about our planet. So it's interesting that he kind of touches on both of those views. So I don't know what to make of it either.
Well, all I can say is, like Cookie said, 2050 is right around the corner. And by George, I hope I know I'm not going to be around for it, but my family will. So let's see what happens. All right, Amanda, it's time for the person of interest. Let's go to it. I got a real good person of interest this week, Boriska Karifjevich, and I know I butchered his name because it's some Russian name that I just can't pronounce well. The boy who claims he's from Mars. I've been in the UFO field now for years, and I've heard my share of stories of the bizarre. But this one, I really want to study more. Hence our person of interest, a young Russian named Boris Karifjevich. Young Boris claims he's a child from Mars. Mars, yes, folks. Boris claims that he lived on a red planet and was reborn here on Earth. He claims that he is on a mission to save humankind. Well, that could help us. Now, before you have your chuckle, please watch this short video.
This is the unbelievable story of Boriska Kiprianovich, the boy who says he once lived on Mars. Boriska Kiprianovich was born on 11th of January 1996 in Volgograd, a city in Russia. As days went by, Nadezhda began to notice other phenomenal, precocious developments in him. According to her, a few months later, Boriska picked up many words and soon began speaking fluently. The baby never cried much and was always in good health. By the time he was about a year and a half, the baby could read, write, and paint. Whenever Boriska drew humans, he always painted a strange orb that floated around them. Later, researchers speculated that the child was trying to draw auras of the people that he could see. When he was 2, Boriska's mother enrolled him in the kindergarten, where he began astonishing his teachers. His teacher couldn't believe it when the 2-year-old wrote with the ability of a much older child. Not only this, but Boriska also possessed an exceptional memory. As the child learned more words, he once spoke something that had his mother in a state of utter disbelief. Every day, the child spoke of a different home, a home that did not exist on this planet. Boriska soon began to talk about faraway galaxies, complex planetary systems, and highly developed alien civilizations. Boriska claims that he belonged to an ancient civilization that once thrived on the Red Planet. He says that after a conflict among his own species that lasted thousands of years, his entire race was wiped out. The child also claimed that a few of his brethren still remain on Mars, residing underground and breathing carbon dioxide. According to him, Martian spaceships were multi-layered and could easily travel across the entire universe. Then, he revealed something that prodded his mother to investigate his case further. Boriska said that his Martian civilization once had a strong connection with ancient Egyptians and the Great Pyramid of Giza. The boy claims that the monument of the Great Sphinx has the power to dramatically change life on Earth when it is unlocked. According to him, the Sphinx can be opened through a complicated mechanism behind its ear, which when opened will reveal great secrets about the universe. While Boriska's surprising claims have always been taken with a pinch of salt, scientists discovered something strange inside the Sphinx in 2017. A few years ago, a team of scientists found a mysterious void when the ancient structure was scanned. As Boriska continued talking about unbelievable instances and displayed extraordinary scientific knowledge for his age, Nadezhda decided to have his case examined by researchers. When scientists studied his case, they were convinced that the child indeed possessed extraordinary intelligence. The boy says that there are many other kids like him, who have been sent on Earth to warn mankind of an impending Armageddon. Boriska refers to such kids as indigo children and says that they possess special abilities.
That's amazing. Boris became so knowledgeable about the universe that he was lecturing scientists about the universe as a young child. And Boris claimed the Martian race was destroyed by a nuclear war, and the Martian race was wiped out. Now, you can have your chuckle and say, how does this kid know? But guess what? A friend of mine by the name of Dr. John Brandenburg, a well-known scientist, discovered that on Mars there was 2 gigantic nuclear explosions, both of them airbursts from above. And Dr. Brandenburg believes that the Martian race was wiped out by a nuclear explosion, and they have proof that there was a nuclear explosion on Mars. Also, what about these young adults called indigo children? Are they reincarnation from a Martian race? What is it? We also know that, reincarnation may be true, but reincarnation from somebody of another planet? Well, the jury's still out, folks. You decide on that. Do they have those supernatural powers? I don't know, but we'll find out more. Guys?
Out of the mouths of babes.
I want to talk to this kid. I'd also love to talk to William Henry. He's an expert on Egypt. I'd love to find out more about that space behind the Sphinx ear. Maybe he could shed some light on that.
They actually found it in 2017 that there was a chamber where this Boris had described it years before they discovered it. So how did he know? Did he just pick it out? I mean, he could have said it's behind the nose, it's behind back of the scalp. He picked it right behind the ear, and he was right on the money.
Yeah, man, I'd love to talk to this kid. Oh, I don't know if that could ever happen. I'm sure he's probably in hiding, right? But
well, if you go to Russia, you might be able to find him.
Maybe.
Russia's all grown up now. I think it's interesting. My daughter, when she was young, like 3-4 years old, and you talk to young children, and sometimes they have knowledge beyond their years, and will matter of factly tell you things like, "Oh yeah, this is how it is," like on the other side, and she knew all her planets and astronomy, and I actually thought she'd grow up and be an astronomer. She didn't go that route, but when she was really little, she knew things like that, and I was like, "Where does that come from?" So I find it all very fascinating, that whole subject.
Well, somewhere down the road, we're going to report more on the indigo children, because a lot of people have claimed to be indigo children, and there's certain traits. We won't get into it now, but we'll get into it later in some of the other MUFON shows.
That'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Is it chapter highlight time? Are we there?
I think so,
right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so for chapter highlights this year, I thought it would be fun to just share websites in the United States. I put together a little video. It's about 3 minutes long, so bear with me. It's just naming off the websites. But what I found, I've been in MUFON for all these years, and I've never really checked out all these other websites. So I thought, get a paper and pencil ready, jot down some of these websites so you can go to them, see what's going on to chapters around you. And another thing this did, it inspired me to make Colorado MUFON's website even better. And at the end, I thought I'd have a little fun with it, given my degree in graphic design and web design. I kind of picked my 3 favorites, and I kind of based that on, usability and just how they looked and functioned and if they were up to date with their info and things like that. So I kind of rated the best 3 just for fun, but it encouraged me to kind of up my game. And a lot of chapters don't even have websites, so I would encourage chapters that don't to get on the ball and get that website going. And so if we want to run that video, Amanda, that would be great. Thank you. MUFON chapter websites in the United States. First, we have Phoenix MUFON at phoenixmufon.com. MUFON Marion Sonoma at mufonmarionSonoma.com. Northern California MUFON at northern-california-mufon.com. MUFON Facebook.com MUFON Tri-County. MUFON Los Angeles at mufonlosangeles.com. MUFON Orange County at mufonorangecounty.org. Colorado MUFON at comufon.org. Connecticut MUFON at mufonct.com. Illinois MUFON at mymufon.com. MUFON Indiana at indianamufon.homestead.com. Maryland MUFON at marylandmufon.org. Michigan MUFON at mimufon.org. Minnesota MUFON at mnmufon.org. Missouri MUFON at missouri-mufon.org. Omaha UFO Study Group, omahaUFOstudy.com. North Dakota MUFON at mufond.webs.com. MUFON Ohio at mufonohio.com. Oklahoma MUFON at mufonok.org. Oregon MUFON at oregonmufon.com. MUFON Pennsylvania at mufonpa.com. Tennessee MUFON at tnmufon.org. Houston MUFON Meetup Group at meetup.com Houston MUFON Meetup Group. Dallas Fort Worth MUFON at dfwmufon.org. And Washington MUFON at mufonwa.org. And the winners for best websites are, drumroll, third place, Ohio MUFON. Second place goes to Tennessee MUFON. And our first place winner is Oklahoma MUFON. Visit a chapter website near you. All right. So, and next week we'll do the international sites. So there's a lot of good sites out there. Yeah, it's fun poking around all those. So, Chris, did you catch up with Bob?
I did. And once again, the international director of MUFON, as far as investigations go, came up with an awesome case. Amanda, would you roll that, please?
Hi, everybody. This is Bob Spearing. I'm MUFON's Director of Investigations for International, and I have a short video for you guys today. It is case 118291 from September 23rd in Sao Paulo, Brazil. It's a short video. It's very colorful, and when it's over, I'll give you some input as to what I think, but I will talk with you as it's going through. You can play it now, Chris. Let it roll. We see these very bright pink phosphorescent lights slowly descending in the sky over Sao Paulo or nearby and extinguishing as they get close to the skyline. So I'm going to ask Chris to put up another graphic right now for me, and I will explain what I believe these things are. These two circles represent the probable areas where these objects were seen. To the north of Sao Paulo is a very desolate foresty area, and to the south is the Atlantic Ocean. If you go to the final graphic that I wanted to show today, you will see Sao Paulo on the left, and if you follow that blue line or that gray line all the way to the right side of the screen, you come to Santa Cruz Air Force Base. What we were seeing there were military flares dropped from an aircraft. Some of the telltale signs are that they're always falling. You never see them jutting around. The reason they're falling is because they're attached to parachutes, and that's why they descend slowly. They're called maritime flares. They're very bright and can be seen up to 50 miles away, which in this case, I believe they were seen about 30 miles away. They're very bright pink phosphorescent color, and they have a lifespan of about 2 minutes. The video was very short, but I can assure you that as they got close to the horizon, to the building tops, that is why you saw them extinguished. Their lifespan is only 2 minutes. This is another case solved, IFO man-made. Thank you very much, Chris.
Man, he is so good at this. I tell you, you know, people come, hey, it's a UFO, it's a UFO. And this guy breaks it down right by the pixels, studies the film, the video, and he comes up with absolute solutions of what it is. Amazing guy.
Yeah, very cool. That would have been cool to see in person. I probably for a moment would have been like, what is happening? But then he explained it. So, yeah.
All right.
All right.
I think it's ERT time, isn't it?
I think so.
Who wants to set that up?
Well, I'm going to tell you, I had a fantastic interview with Maddie Tobias. Maddie was amazing. She's hilarious. Had me falling out of my chair with the whole thing. I had to edit it because it went on for quite some time. But we got to get her on the show because she is a knowledge of ERT. Amanda, would you roll that ERT tape of Maddie Tobias?
Hi, my name is Madeline Tobias, also known as Maddie. So I'm going to speak to you as Maddie. In 2016, I joined MUFON, became a field investigator, and then almost immediately heard about the Experiencer research team and its work with experiencers, people who've had contact with extraterrestrials and UFOs. I immediately joined that team, and there was about 6 or 8 of us on that team. So the ERT is part of MUFON. 7 or 8, the MUFON began a specific group that studied and helped people who had experiences. In 2013, protocols were established. Kathleen Martin had taken over at this time and began the Experiencer resource team. Now, why do we change these words? Well, in the beginning, we were interested in research, but the reason that the ERT has grown for like 6 or 8 people in 2016 to now over 50 people around the world who respond to people who are puzzled, frightened about their experiences. So the team has grown to about 50. I'm on the executive committee, and what we do is train people who interact with those who have experiences with UFOs. Now, it's different than the way the field investigators in MUFON investigate. They want to take that report of a UFO and find out, is it really unknown, and rule out every single other possible causes for the sighting. So they do that scientifically. However, that's not what we do. On the MUFON website, under the ERT, is a questionnaire, 30-item questionnaire. And if somebody has any contact with a UFO that they feel interacts with them or has some kind of unexplained experience, they fill out the questionnaire. It gets sent to Dr. George Medich, and that questionnaire is then sent out to one of our team. the Experiencer Resource Team, because we have resources to help these people. If you've been on a spaceship, it's scary. Let's face it. The individuals that you encounter may be humanoid, or they may look like people, or many times they do not. They experience a vast variety of different extraterrestrials. I started interviewing those people who wanted some kind of response. What is it they want? They want someone to help them digest this experience, which could be quite frightening. And they're afraid to talk to people. They're afraid to talk to their family, their friends, their doctors. They're afraid they'll be thought of as crazy. Understandably, hi, I saw this lizard-like creature. Hi, I saw these little gray men, or I saw this, or I saw that. A praying mantis, people in cowls and robes, whatever. So they don't say anything to anybody, and they keep it to themselves, sometimes for decades. They may have experienced contact as a child, which continues on and off throughout the rest of their life, or maybe just once or twice. My big history right now, my big interest is that people understand we live in a multiverse. We live in a multi-level, extra-dimensional, interdimensional world of consciousness that extends throughout the universe. And within that universe, it's populated by all sorts of beings, some good, some not so good, as above, so below, or as below, so above. And in my experience in talking to hundreds of experiencers and speaking to other ERT members who have even more experiences than myself, what I have discovered is that they're interacting with us for a number of different reasons. And the reason why I wanted to talk about this so much is that there's so much confusion about who they are, as if the little grays are the only beings out there. And some are good and some are bad. And what are they doing on the ships? And why are they interacting with us? Well, the research that I have done and others have done have shown that a large percentage of extraterrestrials care about us deeply and are worried that we're going to kill ourselves off. Hundreds. And these healings by extraterrestrials have occurred on UFOs, on spaceships, yes, but many times in people's houses, in their bedrooms at night. They've occurred on the road as people have traveling. They've even occurred in hospitals. And there are very well documented cases where doctors have planned on doing surgery for cancers, et cetera, and a number of different things. The patient comes in and the cancer is gone. So there's medical evidence of healings that have occurred by extraterrestrials. I mentioned earlier that some people have abduction experiences, but there are many different types of contact and contact modalities. Some people have visitations in their home. For instance, one woman called me, I called her up, she was referred to me, she lives in Canada, and she was quite frightened. She was lying down on the couch in the living room, and suddenly she saw this huge, white, glowing mantis. And she always had a deathly fear of mantises. When one landed on her head as a child, someone put a mantis on her head and scared her. But there was this big, giant mantis. And the next thing she knew was she was feeling this raking feeling in her chest. And it lasted seemingly like a long time. But when it was over, for the first time in years, she was able to breathe easily.
I love her.
She's amazing. I'll tell you.
I love it. Go ahead.
I had an amazing interview with her, and it lasted over an hour. And I had, of course, I can't put an hour show with that. But Maddie wrote a book called God, Dogs, and UFOs. And the story she was telling me, you'll fall out of your chair laughing. She's a wonderful lady.
I just love when she said, if you've been on a spaceship, it's scary. She's just so matter of fact
No
about
kidding.
it. I just love her. Great personality.
We need to get her
So
on
good.
sometime soon for sure.
Yeah.
So go ahead.
No, I was just saying yes.
Yeah. Okay. So this week for Case of the Week, I just put together a little video, something special for Case of the Week. So Amanda, if you want to run Case of the Week. Okay. So for the Case of the Week this week, I thought once a month I would do one of my favorite unknowns that I have closed. This one's a bit older of a case, but one of the reasons why it's my favorite, about half of my unknown cases are actually daytime sighting cases. And I think it's kind of a myth that UFOs are only kind of spotted at night. Some of the best cases are in the daytime. So this is kind of one of the reasons why I like this case. I'm going to read to you guys a little bit of the information about the case, and then I'll try and recreate it by creating a video here. So this is case number 62042. This is back when we did, before CMS had the drop boxes, we did it all on paper. Oh, anyway, so that was always fun. So at 9:45 a.m. on, let's see, this was November 20th, 2014, so around the same time of year, actually. The sighting lasted for 5 minutes. Another reason why I like this case, I like cases that last more than a few seconds. So that's pretty awesome. Let's see. The short description is light, bright, white, shape-shifting aerial object. It turned abruptly, changed shape, disintegrated, and hovered. It was the size of an aspirin. It was white. Let's see. It was a little over a mile, so it was a pretty close-in sighting. It had a hovering path. It hovered, and then it changed direction and hovered again. Let's see. No landing was observed. Okay, so now I'm going to switch over to the video and read you the description. So I hope you enjoy the case. It's one of my favorites. Driving north on North Delbert Road late morning, partially cloudy near intersection of County Line Road, I observed a large, distant, bright white aerial object about 20 degrees above rooftops. It hovered and then made a large arching path movement, then hovered. It appeared to be constantly shape-shifting. My first thought was a pelican, which nest in the landfills. But the way it hovered in one place and seemed to be constantly changing shape made this unlikely. Also, at that observed distance, it would have to be a pelican the size of a prop plane. I watched this object remain stationary yet changing shape for a good 4 to 5 minutes as I traveled north. I then observed 2 fighter jets in tight formation come in from the right, flying relatively low, enough to see the details. The white object disintegrated. In about 10 seconds, the object just faded into nothing. It did not move or sink. It literally looked like a movie special effects where it just dissolved into nothing. The fighter jets broke their formation after the object disappeared and went east and west, respectively. I have never seen anything like this before. So what was cool about this case, number one, it was a very credible witness. Number two, the length of it, but she's lived out there for years, and she said these jets were flying so low you could see the details underneath in such tight formation. They came right at this object, and the reason it like hovered, disappeared, hovered, she said she was watching it, it would like dissolve, arch over, appear, shapeshift, and hover again. So this thing was like coming in and out and moving, which was really strange. And as these jets came towards this thing, she said it just disintegrated in front of her eyes. Just boom, it was gone, and the jets went off. So again, she was very credible, very sensible person trying to figure out what it was. So yeah, I just love that case. What do you guys think about that?
How did the jets always get there so quickly?
Yeah, right. It's like they have a heads up or something.
They absolutely have to. I mean, I don't know how they couldn't. That always freaks me out. That's a really cool case.
You know, it's kind of strange, though, because if you remember what Commander Fravor said, that the UFO met the jets. The jets maybe were just flying their normal formation or whatever.
Could be.
Yeah, that's true.
And as Fravor said, that the UFO met the jets. Not the jets meeting there. It could be absolutely reversed.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Good point.
Awesome.
All right.
All right. So what
Well,
do we
I have
have coming up
something-
next? Oh, Katie, yeah.
Yeah, I got something a little fun for you now. Let's just
Awesome.
lighten the mood here.
Yay.
Unidentified flying celebrities is coming to
Yay.
you again this week. I got a really fun one for you. This one is actually starting with a royal. Check it out, Amanda. Time for this week's unidentified flying celebrities. It's been long rumored the late Duke of Edinburgh was interested in aliens. Perhaps it's no big surprise since his uncle Lord Mountbatten claims to have had a UFO land at his estate, and even wrote an official report on the matter. Author John Hanson claims Prince Philip was a big fan of his work and had many of his books. Nanny star Fran Drescher believes that both she and her ex-husband were abducted by aliens. This was years before they met and while both were driving with their fathers. Fran is convinced they were abducted and had implants placed in their hands. She says they were both left with the exact same hand scar. Not one to be left out of a good party, singer Post Malone claims to have seen UFOs in California, Utah, and over New York, saying, quote, "I'm like, how did no one else see this? But I was there with like 4 other people, and they saw it too." Finally, Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson is down with ET. In an interview with Vice in 2016, he said, quote, "I believe that we're not the only ones. It'd be arrogant to think that," end quote. Well, I'll go on the record and say if we had to pick someone from Earth to greet otherworldly beings, I vote for The Rock. And that's this week's edition of Unidentified Flying Celebrities. Can I get an amen for Rock?
Love it.
That's awesome.
I mean, seriously, if you've got to pick one person, I feel like he kind of represents us all pretty well, you know?
Yeah. I'll
Well, if
second
the
his
ET
vote.
is bad, he can always slam dunk him.
Yeah, I was going to say, he's kind of intimidating. So if ET shows up with bad intentions, look out for The Rock. All right, Chris, do we have time for the book recommendation of the week?
We do. We have Deb Jordan Cobble, and what a fantastic experience she had, and she wrote a book about it. It was a great interview talking about her book. Amanda, would you roll that tape?
Hi, my name is Debbie Jordan Cobble. People probably, if they know me at all, they know me better as Kathy Davis from Bud Hopkins' book Intruders, The Incredible Visitation at Copley Woods. That book was written about me and my family, and in particular, an experience, my big experience I had in 1983 that left a mark in the yard that lasted 2 years and snow melted off of, that caused me to have problems with my eyes that ended up eventually having cataract surgery and new lenses, and left me with memories and nightmares of contact with something that had big gray, a gray being with big black eyes, and also led me to remember previous contact that I had that we had not talked about for years. I was staying with my parents as a single mother, and I was getting ready to go sew one night, and I looked out the back door and I saw a strange light in the pump house, the swimming pool. And I knew it wasn't supposed to be there. So I pointed it out to my mother, and she wasn't too concerned about it. So I went ahead and I went on to sew. But when I got there, I called Mom and to let her know that I'd also noticed that a pedestrian door to the garage was attached to the house was open. When I left, I'd noticed that. And I was worried about burglars, not UFOs or aliens. My mom said not to worry about it. And so I said, fine. And I hung up, and then the phone rang immediately. She called back and wanted me to come home. She said, I want you to come home right now. And she sounded kind of weird. So it kind of disturbed me a little bit, but I went ahead and went home. I went out, looked around the backyard. I didn't see anything. And I thought, I did notice that my dog was under my dad's ladder truck, and she shouldn't have been there, but she would not come out. I went into the garage because I figured if anybody was out there, that's where they'd be hiding. And so I went into the garage, and as I began to try and look behind some mattresses that were stacked up there, I suddenly felt very hot and tingly and weird, like a hot flash. And I thought, oh my God, I got to get out of here. And I ran towards that open pedestrian door. And when I hit the doorway, something hit me in the chest. I remember thinking, oh my God, I'm dead, because the light that hit me was so intense and bright. I know my eyes were closed, but I could still see it. My whole body was vibrating, and it felt like I was coming apart. You know, I could feel each molecule individually of my body. That didn't last long. It felt like time stopped to me, but I don't know how to describe how time feels. So it just seemed like everything just was weird. And then the next thing I remember, I'm out on the patio through the doorway. I see this basketball sized ball of light in front of me. It's softer and much easier to look at. The vibrating had stopped and the intensity of the bright light had gone away, but I couldn't see very well. My eyes were splotchy. The vision was like blotches in my vision. And I could see movement in the yard. And I thought, why are these kids in my mom's backyard? Because there were 6, what I thought were kids in the backyard moving around. And they all kind of lined up in front of me and slid down towards me. They were gliding more than walking. And when I looked to my left, I saw this craft, this egg-shaped thing. I don't know how that could be a craft with 6 little kids in it and fly anywhere. They would be crowded, even if they're little kids. But it was there. I didn't want to look at it, but I was too terrified to take my eyes off of it because I didn't want it to come any closer to me. I heard a voice at one time say it was unfortunate that I felt pain, and I felt someone pull down on my shoulder at one point, and it felt like somebody stuck something in my right ear that burned like fire. And then I remember thinking about my kids, and the voice came back again and said, your kids are fine. Your children are fine. And then I heard my name. And as soon as I heard my name, the fingers snapped and I just woke up, and everything I just described to you went away until the following weekend, which is a couple of 3 days later. The family had come over to swim for 4th of July weekend. The kids came running back in the house, said, Grandma, what's wrong with your yard? So we all went out there, and this mark was in our yard. It was an 8-foot diameter circle, and it had like a 49-foot streak coming off of it that was exactly 2 feet wide and ended in a perfect arc down by the driveway, all the way across the backyard, in front of between the swimming pool and the back patio. And my mom says, oh, that's where our UFO landed. And I looked at her and I thought, why would you say something crazy like that? And then when she did, I started to remember. I started remembering that night. I started to remember the light. I started to remember the gray faces and the big black eyes. And eventually, as the days passed, I started remembering all kinds of stuff. And I felt like I had a nervous breakdown pretty much. I wrote a book, a follow-up book to Bud's book, Intruders. And I did that for my family, my grandkids, so they would know my story after I was gone. And also for people like me who've had weird experiences they don't understand, because I was fortunate enough to have support, and many people like me, most people like me, don't. While the stigma attached to having these experiences has gotten a lot better in 38 years, for sure, it's still there. And I just want everybody to know, people who've had these experiences, to know they're not alone, and that people do believe you and are here for you.
Wow. I love Deb so much. I will tell you guys right now, this book helped me more than probably any other book I've ever read. And she is such a fantastic person, such a brave person. I mean, when you think of, she was going on all those TV shows back when this book, when Bud Hopkins' Intruders book first came out. Deb is such a shy person. She's one of my dearest friends, and she's very shy. She does not want attention. She was not seeking the limelight. That was so hard for her to put herself out there and share her story. But the amount of people, I tell her all the time, you will never know the amount of people that you have helped with this book. And I just can't say enough good things about it. It's funny, while we were watching that, look who showed up. My Jupiter showed up. Apparently,
Jupiter.
she was a big fan of the book too. But yeah, and what she just described there, as incredible as that story was, that is just the tip of the iceberg. When you get into this book, you'll find out, and I don't want to give too much away because you really need to read it if you haven't, but she's had so many paranormal events in general happen in her life. And I think you guys agree. I do think there's a connection. And, whether or not you're the kind of person that is more prone to having paranormal events, therefore you end up having an event, where you see a craft and experience, or if it's the other way around, somehow if the experience triggers this thinner veil around you and then you just start seeing all kinds of things. I don't know. Do you guys have an opinion on that? Because that's something that Deb touches on all through the book.
Well, one of the things that Deb touched on, and which I love to investigate, is the actual forensics of what she's saying, is how the ground changed, that, nothing grows there anymore. Water does not seep into it. The ground itself actually changes composition. And we had that in so many other cases. I've had that with stuff with a lake. I've had that stuff on driveways where there's actual an indentation and the asphalt has changed composition to what it was. So you have that, not only the abduction story to it and possibly an implant when she had fire in her ear, it was hurting and stuff, but you also have the forensic evidence showing that a craft may have either landed or hovered so close to the ground that whatever the craft was giving off, possibly plasma, possibly some ionized radiation, that it leaves a mark that lasts for years. It doesn't just go away in a few days. It can last for years.
Yeah, I'm going to order that book as soon as the show's over tonight, because I don't know why it's not on my shelf. Because just in that short interview, I was relating so much. Back in the Elbert County Ranch, we had that big circle on the ground where we had that wet, heavy snow on the outside, and it was dry. My sister and I were flinging the Frisbee, and we noticed, like, why is this dry under our feet? And then actually, and we'll talk about it after the break, but our guest, John Schuessler, once he learned about my connection to the ranch, he graciously bestowed upon me the briefing document of all the research and investigation out on that property, and it had the measurements of that circle, and there was drops of blood on the outside and all that. And then the basketball, when she said basketball size, I had that basketball size blue orb in the corner of my room. And this, what's interesting about that whole phenomenon for me was it happened right as I started getting back into investigating the phenomenon. It's like I was distracted with raising a family and college and career. And when I went back into that and plugged back into whatever that other veil is, that showed up in my room along with other paranormal things. So I connected already on so many levels with what she was saying.
Yeah. And Deb was actually a MUFON investigator for a time. I mean, she really got into this, wanting to understand, like Chris, like you said, like figure out, why does this grass not grow?
Right.
What is happening here? So I love that she's also a really scientific person. She's one of the smartest people I've ever met. She's also one of the funniest people that I've ever
hilarious.
met. She is hilarious. She has such a good sense of humor, and she's always seeking new information and just wanting to know more. And she's always got time to listen to people. She's such a gem of a human being. And Katie, you're seriously going to love this book. Another thing I love about her is she sticks to the facts. She's not one of those people that wants to flower everything up and try to fill in the gaps and say, well, I think it's this and this. She's like, here is what happened to me. I know it sounds crazy. I know there shouldn't be an explanation for this, but she's really good about sticking to those facts, which I just think makes it all even more believable. And she touches on this in the book, so I don't think I'm giving anything away that she wouldn't want me to talk about, but she was left with some serious health issues after this experience. And I don't want to get too negative, but, a lot of people are like, oh, I'd love to see a craft. I'd be one of those people that would hop right out of my car, and I'd want, that close contact. Well, be careful what you wish for. There are a lot of people out there. We have evidence of people with radiation. Deb's had a lot of issues with her eyes. She's still trying to figure out a lot of what happened to her, and she may never get all of those answers. But have you guys seen that in your investigations too? A lot of people left with physical ailments.
Absolutely. I can tell you that Angie had a person that I interviewed several times. We'll only know him as Witness J because he doesn't want his name out there. He's had very bad medical effects after his encounter that he's had. He's had everything from dehydration. He's lost tremendous amount of weight no matter how much he eats. I've had other abductees who've had terrible health effects afterwards, cancer. Calvin Parker is another one. He's going through right now some terrible medical problems that he attributes to his abduction that he had. So you're right, Katie. You better be careful what you wish for, because getting too close to these crafts or these people can give you some serious side effects.
Yeah. And PTSD is a whole nother issue on top of that. So yeah, it's a very sensitive subject and you have to be very careful.
Yeah. And I mean,
So-
who knows? Maybe they're not trying to cause any harm whatsoever.
Right.
You never know. They might literally be trying to help us. I mean, I always want to believe that. I try to look at this more positively, but whatever they have, technologically speaking, it's powerful. And I don't think we can always physically handle it. I just feel in my gut like nobody was trying to harm Deb. I really, really don't think that. They who knows? They may have even helped her. You know, I don't know, but I just know, like I said, she has suffered a lot physically afterwards. But I will say this to really bring it back around to the positive. She has come to such a beautiful place. Again, I don't want to give away like the end of the book, but she's come to a really great place. I think you'll find this a super inspiring book, especially if you're struggling with any experience that you're having. Definitely check it out.
It's interesting. A lot of experiencers starts out not so good and they come to a really good place. And that's interesting in and of itself too. Well,
Yeah.
I think it's just about time for our break. Coming up, we have our amazing guest, John Schuessler. Can't wait to talk with John. We have so many great things to talk about with him. So hang in there and we'll see you after the break.
I don't want to talk about it.
I don't want to talk about it.
Families don't have to talk about everything, but they should talk about how to plan for an emergency. Get tips and resources to make your family's emergency plan.
Hey members, the new KGRA-DB app is now available on iOS and Android devices. Gain on-demand access to any KGRA-DB programming. Download any show directly to your mobile device to listen or watch on the go. Go to the App Store and search KGRA-DB.
Welcome to the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. Here you'll find great new content, including the KGRA Classics, great shows from our archives. You'll be able to see the show times and information so you can see what show is currently on air. The on-air live button, so just go to this section and you'll be able to hear the show live with exceptional sound quality. We also have the Vault section. Make sure to subscribe to get access to great content and special features. We have the make content for our latest news and events, so make sure to sign up and you can be part of our forum. So make sure to check out the new KGRA digital broadcasting website, thekgradb.com. We look forward to seeing you there, and we hope that you enjoy the new website.
Okay, Amanda, it is time. Our very special guest this week is John Schuessler. John is currently an aerospace consultant. In May 1998, after 36 years of service to the U.S. Human Spaceflight Program, he retired from his position of Director of General Services for the Boeing Company in Houston, Texas. Earlier positions held were Director of Engineering and Project Manager for Space Shuttle Flight Operations for McDonnell Douglas in Houston. He was Program Manager for the design and construction of the NASA Neutral Buoyancy Laboratory, and in 1997, he received the NASA Public Service Medal for his leadership on that project. John earned a Master of Science degree in Studies of the Future, Technology Forecasting from the University of Houston at Clear Lake, Texas. He is a founding member of the Mutual UFO Network, MUFON, administrator for the MUFON Medical Committee, and a member of the UFO Research Coalition Board of Directors. He has authored more than 100 technical papers, articles, and book chapters. He is the author of 2 books, UFO-Related Human Physiological Effects and the Cash Landrum UFO Incident. John served on the IEEE Aerospace Policy Committee in Washington, D.C. since 1992. He is an associate fellow in the American Institute of Aeronautics and Astronautics and a member of the Society for Scientific Exploration, the Institute of Electrical and Electronics Engineers, the American Association for the Advancement of Science, and the Armed Forces Communication and Electronics Association. John currently resides in Littleton, Colorado with his wife and family. My goodness, what an impressive resume that is. Holy cow, John. Welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much.
It is great to have you here. I would really just like to start off your early days, how you got involved in this phenomenon, in this topic.
How do you explain something like that over 60 years?
What kicked it off?
Pardon?
I said, what kicked it all off for you?
Okay, well, I started back when I was a youth on Labor Day weekend in 1948. I was riding in the car with my parents. I was in the back seat. We were driving between Springfield and Decatur, Illinois, past Heliopolis, where the big munitions plant was for all of World War II. And suddenly something caught up with our car, a large ball, red ball, and it's like the sun almost. It passed our car, it turned right and shot out of sight to the south. And we never forgot it. And I had a verification of that much later. In St. Louis, Missouri, I went to a couples meeting at a very prominent church. And I told about this incident. And the pastor's wife just literally screamed when I did. And it shattered me. It stopped. And so I asked her, what's wrong? And she said, I can't believe it. My mother saw the exact same incident, and we have been kidding her about it ever since. And now I've got to be ashamed to tell her that maybe she really was right. And I never forgot that. That was the starting place. And then when I went on and got interested in the space program, that came from the 8th grade. My 8th grade teacher at a little elementary school called Brush College, always said, made fun of me because I was always interested in space and planets and possible aliens. And she wrote a will and testament for the 8th grade. And she says, there goes John Schuessler off into space again. And I think maybe those things kind of implanted the idea in my mind that, there's really something going on. I'm going to pursue it. And as soon as I got to work, I went in the Navy, of course, for a while during the Korean War, Naval Air Reserve. And I got close to McDonnell Douglas because I was stationed right across from their plant. And afterwards, I went to work for McDonnell Douglas on the Gemini program, right at the end of the Mercury. and became the environmental control systems engineer real quickly for that, for all the equipment that kept the crew alive for all of the Gemini missions. I got to know some of the crew members pretty well, and the things that they said and did privately were different than what you see publicly. And on Gemini 4, they saw a UFO. A real devout Christian Catholic astronaut described it. And he was not the kind that would ever magnify something or lie about something. And I was so impressed with the fact that here's this man was willing to say something out loud. And that cinched it for me. I thought, I'm going to pursue this. And working at McDonnell Douglas, my department head said to me, you know, if you talk about UFOs, you're probably going to lose your job here because, you know, everybody knows that's silly. And I said, well, wait a minute, that's science. And Mr. McDonald, James McDonald, head of McDonnell Douglas, was really into the paranormal. He named his planes Banshee and things like that. And the word got to him, and he passed my name out to inquiring people in the government. And I got to meet people that I never thought I would meet and saw the credibility of the kind of people. And I'm still friends with some of those exact same people today. And I've learned so much from them and working with them. And I say working as a hobby. Working in the space business, when we had something fly close to a spacecraft, Gemini 2, there was something came loose on Gemini 2, which was an unmanned craft. And in the second orbit around, they admitted, well, whatever it was, those two things flew away. And I had talked to my structural people about it. They said, you know, nothing happened on the craft. It was just fine. And so it flew away, then that means it wasn't debris. And things like that throughout my whole career kept popping up, convincing me, you know, this is good stuff. And I joined the Aerial Phenomena Research Organization early on and was a consultant for them for a while and got to know Walt Andrus real well. And Walt was such a dedicated person. He solidified my interest in doing something about this, not just talking about it or reading about it or joking about it. And Kathy, my wife, agreed to host a backyard party in our home in O'Fallon, Missouri, and invite the leaders around 7 states to come there for a day to get together and talk about forming an organization called the Midwest UFO Network. And those people showed up, and I'd like for you all to read about it. Get the symposium proceedings of the 50 years of MUFON in 2019. My paper is in there, and it describes who these people were, how they worked together, what great folks they were, and how we proceeded on through to make MUFON a reality in 1969. I was lucky to have a wife like Kathy because she worked at McDonnell Douglas too, and she handled the classified documents control of the documents I had to have to do the work. So we got to know each other. We were both single at the time. We both had families, and we eventually got married. And so she knew the seriousness of it, and she never poo-pooed it, never told me to quit it, and always has been very supportive. And that's one of the key ingredients you need in a spouse if you're going to do something that's a little far out on the limb, because you're going to have people attacking you and threatening you. I've had several death threats over my career as a result of this. And they were taken seriously, and I reported them to the FBI. But on the other hand, MUFON has given me the opportunity since 1969 to meet some of the greatest individuals in the world. These are people that are so dedicated, have so much heart for the phenomena so much care for the witnesses that are affected by this. And the way they're affected is in all different ways. It's not just being radiated. The psychological effects are terrible. And many of them don't have supporting families. And some of them are even ousted by their families as a result. So having MUFON come online, start off in a hurry with a field investigator's manual that made everything recordable in the same way so you could compare evidence in various cases. Then that manual's been revised over and over and over, and right now it's fantastic. I mean, everybody should join just to get to be an investigator. It's the most fun job in MUFON. Anyhow, that's the start of it all.
Well, that's quite a start. Could you tell us how it went from being Midwest UFO Network to Mutual?
It was just an evolution. We were the Midwest UFO Network because Walt had worked with 7 states in that central area, Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, etc., for APRO. And APRO didn't like the power he was getting to work together with these people. And they told him they're going to pull it all the management back into Tucson. And he said, oh. He came down to my house in Ocala, and when we talked, we said we should form a Midwest UFO network and not worry about whether people are going to support it or not. And we'll go ahead and we will still support APRO. We'll support anybody, little groups, big groups that really want to work on this crazy mystery.
John, I am a big fan of yours, and I think the information that you have is just amazing. I want to talk a little bit about your work at NASA, or actually I want to talk about a conference you went to up in Canada, that a gentleman approached you and gave you a NASA photo that had a UFO in it. There's a story going around about that. Can you tell us if that is actually true? And what's the story behind that? Because the story goes, you couldn't find a photo at NASA.
That's very true. I worked on the Johnson Space Center facility for a number of years, from 1974, a full 25 years. But the first few years I was on site and I worked in the Flight Operations Directorate. We had access to the NASA photo historical files in Building 8. And when I went to this symposium, he showed me this picture. This is I don't know how to put it. I don't remember the exact term for it. But NASA used to take various incidents, various things, and photos taken on the moon, photos taken in orbit, etc., and make a one-page picture of it and lithograph them and put a description on the back. He had that. It was a proper document. It was both sides printed as NASA prints them. And I was amazed because I had never seen it, never heard of it. And I went over to the photo lab and asked for the picture number because I had it. And they openly pulled up for me the whole series of photos with those numbers. And it just so happened that one was in the middle of a run of several that were blank. They said, well, these films were ruined, and so there's nothing here. And I said, well, is there any other places where I could go and look for this particular photo? And they gave me the location of other repositories. I contacted those repositories, and I found that some of them had different numbering systems even. And so I never could find that particular photo. I saw the space in their archive where it should have been, and there was nothing there, along with several others before and after it. So I hope that guy never got rid of that one, because he's got a treasure, a literal treasure.
Of course, that one photo goes missing. How suspicious. Is it true that they doctored a lot of those photographs and took things out of things all the time that astronauts and, cameras would pick up in space?
I can't say that that's true or not true. One of the technicians that worked in the photo lab came by my office at lunchtime one day, and she said, "John, you wouldn't believe what's going on. They've got the place cordoned off, and they're taking UFOs out of photos." And I said, "Really?" So I jumped up and I went to the photo lab to see, and I couldn't get in because it was cordoned off. And she actually worked in there while it was going on. And she's been very open about it. She's been on several TV shows and stuff since. I can't verify that really happened. If I don't see it myself, I can't say I verify it. But nevertheless, that is a story that I had fairly close exposure to.
Wow.
John, I have a question. You told me a couple of years ago that you feel like the stigma surrounding ufology is practically nothing now compared to what you faced in the late 60s forming MUFON. Aside from death threats, I'm just wondering, what was it like? Did you feel like you had to be really secretive? Can you just describe that a little?
Well, it depends on if you want to be honest or not. I tried to never embarrass a government organization that I was working for. I tried not to embarrass the company. I also tried to say exactly what I was doing, why I was doing it, and made no bones about it. And as a result, I never had any repercussions in the company. There was a rule you couldn't send personal stuff through the mails across the organization. I was given permission to send it to several areas across other people that had interest in UFOs. And so I shared lots of UFO cases with people, some I knew and some I never met. And, outside of the company too, it's hard to say how bad it was in those days. You were really mistreated if you talked about this subject. But there's still people with lots of guts and lots of heart, and they're the ones that made MUFON. And MUFON has been so consistent from the beginning that this is a scientific issue. It has to be worked scientifically. You don't throw away information just because you don't agree with it, or you don't believe it, or you've got religious differences with it. You keep the science and let the rest of the stuff go by the by. And MUFON has continued to do that. We've at times been abused for doing it. And not, one of the key ways that this thing has been covered up for years is to make a mockery or to plant false information. And making a mockery drives off more people than anything else. Anymore, I don't think anybody would be driven off by that because nobody's going to do it. We know that there are cases. We know the people personally, individually, and they are such solid citizens. I don't know how much more I can say about that. It's a wonderful time we live in now.
John, I have a question for you. NASA was, as we all know, NASA was training astronauts for space exploration. But it just came out recently that NASA was training secret astronauts for possibly military purposes and to put a platform. Was this some sort of secret space program they were doing? And was it that people like you were getting too close to that maybe you were getting death threats? Do you know anything about the astronauts that were being secretly trained? There was two from Discovery that actually came out and said they were secret astronauts.
Well, sure, there were a lot of secret astronauts. The Air Force had a program, a MOLE program. The MOLE was a manned orbiting lab, and the idea was that they would put cameras in this tubular lab on orbit, and then they would send the films. They had to have films in those days. They send the films back out of orbit snag them with an F-119 aircraft over the ocean and take the films in and develop them. But Gemini was going to be the escape capsule to come back in. And so we had a blue Gemini. And his science took over from there, came up with digital things and satellites that could do exactly the same thing that Mole was doing. So Mole was canceled. And the astronauts that were going to be with it were used elsewhere. There was also then later a blue shuttle. And the Air Force made no bones about it. They were building a launch site in California, and they would also launch from the East Coast at Cape Canaveral. And the Blue Gemini was a classified program. I had access to it as one of 3 people at McDonnell Douglas in Houston. And those people actually rented part of one of our buildings. We had 4 buildings, and they rented half of one of them. And they came and went daily, working in there as people in suits, no military organization markings of any kind. You had to have a special top secret clearance to get in. And it's not uncommon. That way with all of the serious programs that protect this nation. And I applaud them for being able to do it. I don't knock them for doing it. I understand that fully. But you go in through the second door after you were cleared in, and there's a big blue shuttle sitting there, a model of it. And so we worked that until, I guess, having a shuttle blow up in orbit and kill all the people, cancel the Air Force interest in it. There was a faction in the Air Force that didn't want a shuttle, a manned program anyhow. They just wanted their satellites. And that went away. So that whole program went down the tubes. But there were astronauts being trained in it. And several of those came to NASA. I worked very closely with one of them who eventually, when he took the shuttle back to orbit after the Challenger incident, he was the first flight out afterwards. And when he retired, he came to McDonnell Douglas, and he was my boss. He was a marvelous person, honest as could be. He lined me up for several presentations on UFOs that he didn't feel he could go to himself, but it was a very nice situation. And like I say, I didn't get abused for doing it because I tried to do it honestly and not to get somebody. So much of this conspiracy stuff is built on initial fact, obscured by people's wishes and thoughts. I watched a program this week where one of the people on it took the data in one of the cases and extrapolated that into something which is not true about the SR-71. It wasn't the metal that came out of Roswell. SR-71 was a titanium aircraft. But, that's this world we live in. Everybody has a right to their opinion, whether they want to agree with it or not. That's what they got to go. Some people are juvenile enough that they can't stand for somebody else to have a different opinion. With me, I thought all the people in MUFON should be given the opportunity to have the opinions they want, work to the depth they want, and apply their talents as much as they want. And you also have to realize these same people have lives, they have families, they have illnesses, they have, things that happen that can really distract. And somebody may be a tremendous hard worker for MUFON this year, and next year they don't do anything. That's because they have lives that include MUFON, fortunately at times.
Yeah. So thank you to all the brave men and women of NASA that have lost their lives for the sake of exploration. And it's sometimes frustrating for me, and I don't know what you think about it, John, those who believe we didn't even go to the moon or we faked the moon landing. And also, what do you think about sending just average humans up to space now?
I think it's a great idea. I've been a pusher for public space since the program began. You know, we originally had airplanes to fly people, but we didn't keep the Air Force in the airline business. And I looked at it the same way as NASA. You know, they have a role to get people in space and do exploration and do testing and create new things and marvelous things that they do. But there's also a role for citizens, and citizens should be able to go easily and safely. Now, it's going to be just like flying. I have several friends that were killed in aircraft flights. One of the astronauts, in fact, that I was very close to, was flying his own test airplane and was killed. So, you know, you're going to have the same thing happen in space. People are going to have accidents. They're not going to make it back. But that's part of the job. You got to realize it's not an easy thing. Just getting ready for it's tough.
Is it something you would consider doing if you were offered the chance?
Well, now I couldn't because of my health. But I would have my whole life. I would have done it at any minute. You know, that's for sure.
Well, I want to ask you, what is it like for you? You've been in this for so many years when there's a massive sighting like the Phoenix Lights, where thousands of people are all convinced they saw something that could not be ours. What were your thoughts on that event?
Well, those kind of events are marvelous to have because they do pull out exposure of things and people that wouldn't get exposed otherwise. But there are plenty of cases that are more individual or just as important and have just as much things. My interest has always been in the technology side of it. What can we do that would copy some of this stuff? And also the effects on humans. That was one of the Cash Lanham case brought that into focus for me so well because I saw what happened to these people. I got to know them and their families. I followed that case and the people until they died, talking to them off and on continuously, lining up doctors, lining up treatments and things, trying to keep them alive. And they were fine people because they were honest. When it started, I said, you know, this sounds crazy to me, but if you will be open with me and let me have exposure to your relatives or anybody else that I want to talk to, I'll support you as long as you need the support. And we both work that way. And I'm still friends with Vicky's daughter on Facebook every week or so. So, you know, you form friendships as well as fears and fixes. It's the people, you know. MUFON recognizes it's the people. And that's why we have trained people that go out there. That's why we try to send more than one person out at a time. You know, back in the Cash Lanham case, we had an 8-person team, and all those people, half of them were government workers at a low level in laboratories. And one of them was the guy that did the remote driving of the little car on the moon when they were driving it from the ground or looking at things with a camera. So that quality of people that looked into this, we had a mechanical engineer and a NASA person, and he was a great help in looking into this. We also had people that weren't involved in the government programs. One of them was a pilot, so he did flyovers for us to look for stuff from the air. We walked the roads, we walked the grounds, we talked to people. We found lots of other witnesses. And, you know, it makes it very real when you get out there and pound the dirt with your feet and look around. It becomes more than a story. And that's why I recommend people becoming field investigators.
So true.
John, I want to talk a little bit about that Cash Lanham case because that's one of the most important UFO cases in the history of ufology. I mean, you wrote a book on it, and so I consider you one of the most regarded experts in that case. Here's my question to you: is Stan Freeman told me at one time, God rest his soul, he was a great man. Stan Freeman explained to me that the government was working on different type of propulsion systems. And I want to ask you, was this possibly a black government project that went astray? Because there was helicopters in tandem and escorting this craft. And it was giving off a tremendous amount of radiation. I mean, it burned people. I mean, the road had to be dug up and everything to this. Could this have possibly been a government project went astray?
I would never say never, but I don't believe so. We tried everything possible to find out if there was any connections. We were misled by, I don't give people's names that are negative, but one of the other people in this field had somebody plant some stuff on the ground and had me go looking for it, and I did, and I found it. And it just so happened he planted it where it wasn't before when we actually walked the roads and looked for stuff. So I knew it was a setup. And then they tried to give it a government name. He said it was an object that flew to Ellington Air Force Base in Houston. And then it was up there, it got in trouble. At the particular time, various aerospace companies in Houston had people sit on a Ellington Air Force Base property development plan. And the Air Force got out of it. They left a chunk of it for NASA with their hangar. They left a chunk for the Coast Guard. They left a chunk for the Air National Guard. And then all the rest was up for grabs. So we soon got an aircraft, those little shuttlecrafts to go up to the big airport so we could fly close to NASA, up to the airport and fly different places we had to go. On that committee, I was in every building that the Air Force had. Most of them were pretty dilapidated when they turned them loose. The hangars and all were kept in good shape, of course. And then they gave the story, well, part of it was underground there. Well, you don't put underground there because you're about 15 feet above the water table. And you put anything in the ground, you have a problem. When I think it was mentioned that I was project manager for NASA's underwater test facility, neutral buoyancy lab, that we put that in, it had to be 40 feet deep. We only put it 20 feet in the ground, but that was below the water line. We put 20 feet above the ground. And the way we were able to do it is we drilled wells all the way around that huge facility and pumped water 24 hours a day until we got it dug out and we got it all framed up, concreted, steel and concrete, 6 foot thick floor, etc. And got it water in it so it couldn't blow out of the ground. And then we could quit pumping. There was no technology like that used when Ellington was built. So I knew that was a lie. So we did a lot of wild goose chases. And I couldn't begin to tell you how many of them. But as far as records go, I had copies of medical records from Betty's many hospitalizations. It clearly showed that she was irradiated with something. And in those days, radiation exposure was still classified. We couldn't get much information about it. Well, what we could get, it was pretty sure that it was similar but not the same. And then later we found that radiation is a whole different ball game today than it was in any 48 through 60s, 70s, 80s, and she was irradiated, there's no doubt about it. Her eventual death showed that she was anemic, was given iron to boost her as a last ditch. She had a stroke. She had a tube in her stomach. And I haven't told this out because Bill Klass, the debunker, told all about how she just had a heart attack and died. It wasn't true, like anything else the poor man said. She went home for Christmas, and on the anniversary of her incident, she passed away, and 18 years later.
Oh man!
And,
So
it's emotional because you get so close to see it, trying to keep people alive, and many others. We had an incident in Missouri where a MUFON person was exposed to something. He was a MUFON investigator, and I knew some people that had the capability to possibly help. You have to accept the fact that they still work for the government. And I offered that to keep this guy alive, and his family thought it was all mockery, I guess. They didn't want that. And so he did pass away. It's serious. We are in serious business.
Yeah, it is very serious. And I know that Cash Landrum, that was in 1980, wasn't that?
Yeah, December 29th.
So right after, I had mentioned earlier that, you had involvement and were aware of the phenomenon in Elbert County, Colorado with Linda Moulton Howe and the cattle mutilations. And in fact, I think you worked on a team and wrote a book called The Choppers and the Choppers, because we had the helicopters out there as well. We even had that diamond-shaped craft out there, noises underground, and there were people that assumed maybe they were digging underground, maybe out from Air Force Academy through the Black Forest. I don't know if that's true, if they could even dig like that during those years. But what do you remember about, those years and the black helicopters and the mutilations and all that?
Well, mutilations is a whole different story. MUFON really got involved in those. We had a MUFON representative here in Colorado at the time, and he was in the police plane. He did a lot of tracking down the stuff all the way from Snippy the horse to all of the other many mutilations here in Colorado. And that was serious business. And things that happened, it's another whole bag of worms when you get into the mutilation things. But there were mutilations that occurred here in Colorado where people had the roads cut off to that area, and they still happened in that area. So you couldn't say that it was faked. It wasn't. There were people that said they came in with a semi-truck that the top would open on. They would raise a platform in it, helicopter, and open the rotors and fly out, do these things, get the information they want from the cattle, and drop them. And that's why they often found them upside down with their feet sticking straight up, etc. One of the other members of MUFON for a number of years with Ken Starch, he did a police officer. He did a lot of investigations here and that. I got to know Ken well. He was a good investigator. He's a good policeman. Another set of good people for MUFON. Don't know if I answered the question.
Yeah, you did. Yeah.
John, I'd like to know something about what Stan Freeman had told me, and I want to know, because of your involvement with NASA and all these other private companies, how far advanced are we with new propulsion systems? How are we with that? There's a lot of talk now that, for instance, Ben Rich said, we have the ability to take ET back home. And that was a huge statement for Ben Rich to say. Ben Rich was the head of Skunk Works at Lockheed Martin. What is your take on that? And what is your take? Can we take ET home?
I don't think so. I would like to think so, because that was the air. Pushing the technology was always the fun thing that I was involved in throughout my career. And I never saw it go that far. But the technology we see today, I've always said, well, that's 20 years old now, because we're way on out beyond that. And that's why they're classified programs. Is you do this work, DARPA or whatever organization, you do this work in highly classified areas because you've got all of your enemies of the United States. They're watching every word that's said, looking for leads, looking for places to perform espionage on your computer systems to get information, etc. It's got to be classified, and it's highly classified. And until it comes out in the open, it doesn't exist. And they have to say that. They have to lie to say that. Otherwise, it would be gone. You know, if you look at Russia's airplanes, they copied a lot of the U.S. airplanes by getting information and copying them. China did the same thing to start. China has leapfrogged a lot now, and their hypersonic weapons are bizarre. They say they have a hypersonic weapon on orbit now. We don't have, as far as I know. I know some of our hypersonic tests did fail, but some have been pretty good. And we are going to be there with that kind of technology.
John, I have a question. You said you're very motivated by how this phenomenon affects people, but also the question of the propulsion of this craft. You know, how are they doing what they do? If you had the chance to ask one question to a non-human entity, what's the answer you want most out of this?
I guess that answer would have to be, how do you do it? Show me how you do it. Don't just give me a story that could be a lie. I want to see it. That's why conspiracy theories get going, though. People want to know. They get a little bit and they get misled, and then it becomes a whole conspiracy, which is a waste of your time. You just kind of got to back off and ignore them and go for the data. Always go for the data.
Yeah. So, John, you know, these last few years have really changed the face of ufology with the Navy coming out and these new government programs. Where do you think the future is headed for this field?
Well, two things. One, MUFON was involved in the MASS program with Bigelow Aerospace. We were mentioned in the new book that the program manager wrote, James Lukaski and Colin Kelleher, who was the and George Knapp, the three of them. And in this book, it says, MUFON's work was exemplary. We did the great stuff. We wrote the right documents. We put together STAR teams. We got rapid people into the field. We followed protocols with our documents, etc. And I think that was a good step. I've always felt that we should have been the one that was actually contracted for by the government to do this kind of work. And we should be, and we should do it if we care anything about our country and our future of our kids and all. But it's not going to happen. This new program they just announced in the Pentagon, it's not an operational program, it's an oversight program. And the guy that was ahead of it before, Chris Mellon, he's even said, look, this isn't going to get you what you think it's going to get. It has no budget. It has no line authority. It can't contract. It couldn't give a contract to move on. It's not not a technology program. It's a control program, as far as I'm getting dry. As far as I'm concerned, it's a control program. And it's even been said in some of the things that I heard here at the beginning of this program, that it's going to be run looking at things at the highly classified basis, which then they cannot give it to the public because it's classified. So you're not going to get the answer you want. You're dealing with people in the government that have reasons for doing what they do, why they do it, how they get paid to do it. Some of them would do anything, Some of them are so dedicated. The government workers I worked with in NASA and with the Air Force and with others are outstanding people. I mean, they were ethical. they wouldn't steal a pencil, for instance. It's that good, and most of the workers are in that category. But there are people that have reasons to bomb this stuff out, and you're never going to get around that because you're dealing with people.
Well, John, I kind of agree with you about this new office that they made, because I think it's nothing more than a window dressing to shut Senator Gillibrand down. Senator Gillibrand wanted to have private companies like MUFON, private organizations, to come in and do UFO research with the government, more like a tag team. And that would give MUFON so much more credibility, because if we were doing the investigations and going to the government, and the government was saying, yes, MUFON brought us this, MUFON brought us that, even though we are highly credible as an organization. But I think the military said, no, we got to shut this down right now. Let's create our own office, and we can make sure that private organizations like MUFON don't come in. So I want to ask you a question about astronauts. I want to change it a little bit. You've talked to a lot of astronauts, and it's amazing what you've been saying about them. Has any astronauts ever come to you and say, John, I've seen an incredible UFO and it made me scared, or I'm really worried about this, or you should see? What's the most amazing story you've heard from the astronauts about UFOs?
From the astronauts?
Astronauts.
It's hearsay at that point, because when you're having a meal or at a party or something, when you talk about these things, they're just down to earth. Nobody has ever, if you're talking about an astronaut, you're talking about a person that is so well trained in science and in piloting and in various other things, that they don't make things up. They also don't try to get in trouble by saying the wrong things. Just the fact that I mentioned one of the astronauts got killed with his own private plane that he was flying. He came to work for McDonnell Douglas I don't remember the year. But anyhow, we talked a lot, and he came over, was in my office one day, and one of the secretaries said, you better watch out for that guy, because he talks about UFOs. And this astronaut looked at her and he said, if you don't know what you're talking about, you shouldn't say things like that, because he knows what he's talking about. And I about fell out of my chair. He was so direct in saying that, and I really admired him for it. I still have a picture of his spacecraft up on my wall now, because I admire his tenacity and ethics.
Yep.
I have a question. Going back to the government, and people like Rubio, they want to form these committees and study this, and then we see that they might be getting shut down. Do you have any sense on whether or not they actually know something that they really think we deserve to know? Or do you think it's they don't know what they don't know, that perhaps they don't even realize the hornet's nest they could be stirring up? Do you have any sense of that?
Well, when you're talking about a government, you're talking about a mass of disorganized groups working together that eventually make something happen. And it goes from the technical level to the management level to the political level. When it gets to the political level, it gets so fuzzed up that it's useless, you might say. I don't have great respect for politicians in general. The few of them that stay honest, in my opinion, are very few, but they're really great, like Gillibrand, for instance. They're not all that way. You don't have a unified approach where anything is stored. You don't have a unified approach on opinions between organizations. at various levels. You don't remember how many 100,000 organizations there are to connect? That's why it's silly to expect them all to be able to work together and say something, and that's why they all work individually and why stuff gets punched up. That's really important to running the country. And so you're going to lose a lot of the data on things like UFOs that they carefully lost over the years.
Yeah. So, John, we only have a couple minutes left here, and I would kind of like to end this interview just, where do you see the future of MUFON going?
I see MUFON's future being really bright. MUFON is going to be still the one organization that has a more than 50-year history and data bank and people's backgrounds. And with all of the farce going that's probably going to come out of these new organizations of the government, MUFON's still going to have to keep a level head and keep their feet to the fire. So it's honestly done. And hopefully one of these cases will happen that they cannot deny or cover up or what. I hope it happens. They're not going to land on the White House lawn. That'd be a crazy place.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's, a lot of the cases we get, 85% we can solve, but we have these great cases that come across, our field investigators every now and again. And it's the people collectively that they're not going to be able to stop the disclosure process, because one of these days something so mind-blowing is going to happen that they're not going to be able to shut it down.
Well, the good thing is that MUFON is coming into the current age with things like this program, data banks, training sessions, open information, all of the things that MUFON does, it can do because it's a private, nonprofit, volunteer organization. It makes it powerful. And volunteers are a powerful source in this world. We'll look at it in every subject.
Yep, absolutely. Those databases are going to be key, don't you think, Chris and Katie? All this information coming together and making it searchable, just like, hey Siri, that's going to be key. John, you've been an amazing guest. Thank you so much for being here with us today. You've been incredible to talk to, and everything you've done for this field, in creating MUFON. I mean, we're all standing on the heels of you. So really thank you so much for everything you've done for this whole field and your generosity. I'm sitting here, my microphone is on. Something people don't know. John graciously donates and shares a lot of his research. At our Christmas parties, we're kind of lucky to be in Colorado because we do silent auctions, and it's just a lot of fun. And you're so generous with everything that you've learned through the years and sharing it with others. So thank you for that.
Yeah,
you're welcome. Thanks for having me. And I'm happy to share things because over the years I've shared with every organization around, whether it was for us or against us, because I feel the data is important and see where it goes.
That's right. Right. Well, thank you so much. You've been a pleasure. Next week, we have Debbie Ziegelmeyer. She will be joining us next Thursday night. We're getting the whole board on here, which is great. So I hope everybody has a fantastic rest of your night. Thank you so much to my co-hosts, Katie Cook and Krista Perno. Thank you to Bill Skywatcher and to his assistant producer, Amanda Curran. It was a great show once again, and I look forward to next Thursday night. I hope you all have a great rest of your evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.